and even internally, there's lots of spiritual people there.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful place.
Yes.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So, sorry. Dear devotees, we thank you all for being here. Today we have Her Grace, Mother VRAJALILA Devi, who will be speaking to us from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. And this is a very beautiful portion of the Bhagavatam. We get the opportunity to hear a little bit about each of the various incarnations of the Lord. So that's very beautiful. And one thing I realized, Mother VRAJALILA, is from the previous two texts to the end of this chapter, they are all glorifications of Krishna's unique position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Without further ado, we may put the verse on the screen and then you may take it over.
Okay, thank you so very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Canto 2, Chapter 7, text number 31. And while you're putting it up, I'll just chant Narayana, Namaskrityaya, Narayan Chavam Narotamam, Devam Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Murdayat, Nasta Prasya Bhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavati Sevayat, Bhagavatu Tamashloke, Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiki. I am so very grateful to be in the West African Yacha and thankful for everyone that took the time to be on the class. Thank you so much. So we're going to chant the verse. Maybe you can pull it up a little bit, Sal, please. Thank you. Okay, let's get the meter. Nandam chamokshati bayad varunasya pasad gopandoleju pihitan maya sununacha avni apritam nishishayanam atishramena lokan Vaikuntham Upaneshyati Gokulam Shmaha. And the synonyms, Nandam, unto Nanda, the father of Krishna. Cha, also. Mokshati, saves. Let me just get that next word. Bayat, from the fear of. Varunasya, of Varuna, the demigod of water. Pasat, Pashat, from the clutches of Gopan, the cowherdman, Bileshu, in the caves of the mountain, Bihitam, placed, Maya Sununa, by the son of Maya, Cha also, Agni Apritam, being very engaged during daytime, Nishi at night, Shayanam, lying down, Atish Ramena, because of hard labor, Lokan, planet, Vaikuntham, the spiritual sky, Upanishyati, he awarded, Gokulam, the highest planet, Shma, certainly, Shma. Love that. Translation. Lord Krishna saved his foster father, Nanda Maharaj, from the fear of the demigod Varuna and released the cowherd boys from the caves of the mountain, for they were placed there by the son of Maya. Also to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were busy working during daytime and sleeping soundly at night because of their hard labor in the day. Lord Krishna awarded promotion to the highest planet in the spiritual sky. All these acts are transcendental and certainly prove without any doubt his godhood. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Nanda Maharaj, the foster father of Lord Krishna, went to take his bath in the river Yamuna in the dead of night, mistakenly thinking that the night was already over. Thus the demigod Varuna took him to the Varuna planet, just to have a look at the personality of Godhead Lord Krishna, who appeared there to release his father. Actually, there was no arrest of Nanda Maharaj by Varuna because the inhabitants of Vrindavan were always engaged in thinking of Krishna in constant meditation on the personality of Godhead in a particular form of samadhi or trance of bhakti yoga. They had no fear of the miseries of material existence. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that to be in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by full surrender in transcendental love frees one from the miseries inflicted by the laws of material nature. Here it is clearly mentioned that the inhabitants of Vrindavan were extensively busy in the hard labor of their day's work. And due to the day's hard labor, they were engaged in sound sleep at night. So practically, they had very little time to devote to meditation or to other paraphernalia of spiritual activity. But factually, they were engaged in the highest spiritual activities only. Everything done by them was spiritualized because everything was dovetailed in their relationship with Lord Sri Krishna. The central point of activities was Krishna, and as such, the so-called activities in the material world were saturated with spiritual potency. That is the advantage of the way of Bhakti Yoga. One should discharge one's duty on Lord Krishna's behalf, and all one's actions will be saturated with Krishna thought, the highest pattern of trance in spiritual realization. Om Ganati Mirandasya Ganagana Shalakaya Chakshur Anmilatanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namashrite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sata Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubhascha Vipa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nivishesha Sunyavari Pastyatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Hare Hare Jai devotees, thank you very much again. And so let's dive into this beautiful, beautiful pastime and see what lessons that I am to get from this pastime, and prayerfully that I can communicate and perhaps open a little space in your heart to hear something from this pastime that could make a difference in your life, prayerfully. Lord Krishna saved his foster father, Nanda Maharaj, from the fear of the demigod Varuna and released the cowherd boys from the caves of the mountain, for they were placed there by the son of Maya. Also to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were busy working during daytime and sleeping soundly at night because of their hard labor in the day, Lord Krishna awarded promotion to the highest planet in the spiritual sky. All these acts are transcendental and certainly prove without any doubt his godhood. Saha, can you just go up to the synonyms, please? the synonyms. Just want to look at one thing. Okay, yeah. So Krishna, Mokshasi, he says, Bayat, the fear. Okay, so that word fear is coming up. All right, I just wanted to check because in the purport, Prabhupada says, of course, there's no fear. Haribol, thank you very much. Haribol, Hare Krishna. Okay, so this is all of these, as Ade was sharing, all of these different texts in this chapter are sharing about Krishna's magnanimous person, who he is. And there's no way that I believe, can possibly understand who the Lord, who just the magnanimous nature of Krishna and what he does, and how he protects his devotees, saves his devotees, be with his devotees, expands himself. There's no way I could possibly understand this. However, by the mercy of my spiritual master, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, somehow I and all of us have been given the mercy to hear these pastimes and to get purified so that we can internalize the meaning and the messages from these pastimes. And so that's my prayer, to be able to enter into this mood of what's going on in Srila Prabhupada, reflecting on this verse, because Srila Prabhupada also in his purport, he's giving us a kind of like a picture or a vision of what's happening in this pastime. So this pastime is a pastime everyone knows, and so I won't, go as much into it. However, just for my own benefit, my own purification, as I was meditating on Nanda Maharaj and just, knowing that what Prabhupada says, that, okay, we all have experience of fasting on Ekadashi, and we all know that some Ekadashis are short and some Ekadashis are long, depending on the time of when we need to break the fast for Ekadashi. And so in this particular situation, Nanda Maharaj is faced with this, time, Krishna says, I am time. And so this timing of, so I say that to say, Krishna is time. So everything that's being arranged in this pastime is arranged by Krishna in terms of his time and in terms of what he wants to reveal in his time. And so here he's revealing to us in this pastime some lessons that we possibly can utilize in our lives, in our daily lives. And so time is Nanda Maharaj faced with time, and he's now having to break his fast. Every one of us fast on Ekadashi, so we know what that means. There's a window when we break the fast, and if we miss that window, then it's explained that it's like we didn't fast. So of course, in traditional Vedic culture, before a person eat, they shower, and I see that. I'm seeing that, having lived in India for many years and living even in other places, not just in India, in many places. Before people eat, they bathe, they take a bath, or they shower, or whatever. They take water, even if they put water in their feet before they sit and honor prasad. So Nanda is faced with this. He's, of course, having to take a bath, and the time is not quite the time that he's supposed to take the bath. Is some, I believe, like a minute, there's a speck of time that he's gonna try to dip into this water. And then, of course, those persons that, as always, that want to check what spiritual people do, and always have some way that they want to show that they know more, or they have some way that they want to prove to the people that they are responsible to. In this case, the associates of Varuna, they are thinking, okay, I'm going to do something very wonderful. I'm going to bring this person to Varuna because this person is doing something that they're not supposed to, which happens all the time, right? all the time. We kind of tend to, you know, have assumptions about what's proper, what's not proper, what's wrong, what's right. We label people in all different ways. And so here we have these associates of Varuna doing that. They're assuming that Nanda Maharaj is just doing something that's not appropriate, that's not proper. And so of course they're taking him. They took him to Varuna, their authority. And so of course Varuna is a little, you know, like kind of he's a demigod, so he's very aware that okay, this is not just an ordinary person you guys are bringing here. Like, what are you doing? And at the same time, when these associates take Nanda Maharaj to Varuna, the cowherd men that were with Nanda Maharaj, because remember, Nanda Maharaj is a king, and he, you know, have all this huge entourage of people with him, and so they realized that he didn't come out of the water because they're waiting for him. Right? He goes in, take a quick bath, quick snan, as they call it, quick bath, and then they realize he's not there. So they started calling Krishna, Krishna, ho baho, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Now that's the point where Prabhupada makes in this purport that about fear. So the normal tendency is to think, okay, they're calling Krishna because they're afraid that, you know, something has happened to Nanda Maharaj in the water. But Prabhupada says in the purport that, you know, no, they have no real fear because they know Krishna is going to come. So because they spontaneously have that understanding that Krishna is going to just call Krishna is going to figure it out, just like a child when they something is going on with them that they, you know, they're confused about. They may immediately call their mother or their father, right? If they have whatever the relationship is with either one of them, they'll think, okay, they'll figure it out. Just like this is a very mundane example of me sometimes with technology, because sometimes it's difficult for me with technology. So immediately I know I could call it Ikivira because I don't understand this. I don't even want to understand this. So he's going to come and he's going to figure it out. And that's fine. I know that. And so it's like that. The cowherd men, they knew, okay, just call Krishna. Krishna's going to figure it out. We don't know what's going on. We just know he's not coming back. And so we got to call Krishna. Now, these pastimes are so beautiful because, again, going back to time. So this was a beautiful time for Krishna to give his darshan to Varuna. And Krishna made himself available to give that darshan to Varuna. And Varuna is also very happy. In one sense, Nanda is here. It's foolish. His people did some foolish thing because, you know, whatever their intentions were, they didn't understand Nanda's intention. And so Varuna is happy because he knows Krishna is going to come. Krishna will come, you know, to get his father. Of course, he's going to come and get his father. And so in this pastime, it's explained that when Krishna comes, you know, Krishna comes and goes, you know, down into the water. And we learn that Varuna's abode is all the way at the bottom of the ocean or river or whatever, or the, you know, the seas, bottom of the seas, all the way at the bottom. And so Krishna goes down there, and of course, that's a whole abode. There's because Varuna is the treasurer, so he's wealthy. He's wealth personified. And so he takes that opportunity to really glorify Krishna, right? It's explained by one of the acharyas that he had a festival like Janmashtami, bigger than Janmashtami, any festival that we can think about. And he just took that opportunity to glorify Krishna, to thank Krishna for coming. A point that was really important in that pastime for me that that we can reflect on. I believe this can, you know, be something we can think about in our daily life, is how Varuna at that point in time, when he had the opportunity, you know, to worship Krishna, he was so very grateful. He was so grateful. And he was saying that this moment of worshiping Krishna, that it's the value of it was like in how many lifetimes he had before, nothing could equal to just getting that moment of being in Krishna's association, to be able to see Krishna, to be able to worship Krishna. It was kind of like it was beyond anything that he could imagine in that body. And so he was saying that in that body, that he that it was perfect, that it was like his success, his great success for this demigod that's in charge of all the wealth of the demigods of everywhere. He's saying, my success in this body at this present time is that I'm able to see the personality of Godhead, and to be with Krishna. It was just for him the most joyous experience. And so similarly in our lives, it's like that, right? When we first get introduced to Krishna, we read a book, or we meet one of Krishna's pure devotees, or we meet an associate, just any associate of the Lord. Something happens, something different happens in our lives because we've come in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And most especially when we get the opportunity, to chant the holy name of the Lord, because that's actually a way of receiving Krishna. That's actually a way of getting Krishna's love. That's actually a way of getting Krishna's mercy, by being able to call Krishna's name. And so we get this amazing opportunity by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's representative. In this case, for me, it's my revered spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, to get this amazing opportunity that Varuna got in this body, in this lifetime, to be able to connect with the Lord through the holy names of the Lord, because Krishna's name is not different from him. And so although we tend to, or I could say I tend to, sometimes take the holy names of the Lord for granted, I just, after 40 years, I have a tendency to not always be how do you say, I don't want to say reverential, because it's more than that. It's more than being reverential. Not understanding the mercy that I'm receiving. The tendency is I may minimize, just the glorious nature of having to be able to connect with Krishna through the holy names. So that's possibly something that I would minimize in my life at different points in time, and very aware of that. And so this part of the vision of if we take a meditative kind of look into this pastime and see what Varuna felt at that time to be able to see Krishna and worship Krishna. So Prabhupada, he gives us this story to help us to reflect on our lives, to help us to see each of these pastimes is meant to teach us something in our present day life. So how happy are we when we are able to see Krishna? Now, can we see Krishna? Yes, we can see Krishna through his holy names. Krishna manifests himself personally by chanting his holy names. We can see Krishna reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Read any person, I believe, and that's been around in Krishna consciousness for some time, if they're experiencing some challenge, some other person will always say, just open a page of Srila Prabhupada's books. Take a book, open a page. Whatever you open, it's going to help you with whatever it is that you're challenged with. And I've tested that many times, because, sometimes you hear these things and you're like, that's not scientific. But it is very scientific. It's transcendentally scientific. If we open any of Srila Prabhupada's books at any time when we're challenged, we will see Krishna. Krishna will show himself to us. And if we are attentive, that connection will make a difference in whatever the problem is in our lives. So back to Varuna. Varuna is getting the special mercy, right? To be able to see Krishna, and he's jubilant, he's excited, he's happy. And he apologizes to Krishna for his servants, of what they, his associates, because according to the acharyas, they were supposed to know that Nanda Maharaj wasn't an ordinary person. They were supposed to know that he's the son of Krishna. I mean, the father of Krishna. They didn't, they were so absorbed in their assumption that he was doing something that was inappropriate, that absorption caused them to create a situation where Varuna had to apologize on their behalf. How many times have we been in situations where we've done something, said something, been in some place where we just did something that was not appropriate, and someone had to apologize on our behalf? Someone. How many times have we been in those kinds of situations? So again, these pastimes are simply to help us to look more deeply within ourselves. These pastimes are to help us to really understand what's going on in my inner self. What's happening in my inner self. Externally, we project so many things. Externally, we could look so advanced. We wear, sari, tilak, whatever. Even externally, we could speak so many things. We could quote so many verses. There's so many things we can do externally. What is really going on with us internally? And how are we really bonding internally with ourselves? How much are we connected to the externals of who we think we are, which Prabhupada explains to us that externally, material nature has nothing for us to really become so absorbed in, because it's also temporary, right? Everything about our externals is so temporary. Yet we spend so much time on the externals. So this pastime is to help us to go internally, to understand, what is my connection with Krishna? How do I know Krishna is real? How can I really see Krishna? Does Krishna arrange for me to see him? In what ways am I seeing him? Every single day we can ask ourselves that question, because Krishna is always available, and every day we can see him in something in our lives. Anyway, the other point that was made in this purport is about the fear aspect. Prabhupada says they had no fear of the miseries of material existence. This is the residents of Raj, right? All the devotees. Some had come with Nanda Maharaj. It wasn't that they were fearful. It was that, when we understand fear in a material sense, we understand fear in relationship to our external self, our body. Somebody's going to do something that will hurt me. And so as a result of that, we experience some fear, right? Right now, the whole world is full of fear everywhere you go, because, people are just doing things that are inappropriate. And so it's bringing up fear in a lot of people. However, internally, if a person is really connected to the Lord, and I'm not even speaking of just Krishna consciousness, if someone is because I was thinking of Salika Prabhu, and he's in Jaws, right? And I remember when I was in Jaws, I was there not as a devotee. This is quite interesting. I was in Jaws not as a devotee. I was working at that time, and we were doing seminars throughout West Africa. And those seminars were on conflict resolution and mediation. So I was mediating different groups of people. And I tell the story sometimes because, sometimes we get a little sectarian in how we think about our Krishna consciousness. So here I am in Jos, which I had visited as a devotee to distribute books. We went to Jos, and in the very early days of being in West Africa, that was the first stop that we went to was Nigeria. And in our book distribution, we would go every place in Nigeria, every place. And so I had gone there before as a devotee, but then I got hired to go there later, much later in my devotional life, right? I'm still trying to be a devotee, but I was hired because my spiritual master approved of me to do that particular service at that time. And so here we were in JAWS, and I'm doing mediation with these different groups of spiritualists, Christians and Muslims. And I think at that time there was also perhaps some Baha'is, can't remember. But anyway, there was different NGOs from these different groups. And so here I'm as a devotee. However, I'm not a devotee. I'm like an undercover devotee. And so I am there to try to bring people together because of the different conflicts. At that time, it was conflicts over oil, I think. Yeah, conflicts over oil. But anyway, and I'm diverting a little bit, only to come back to this point that in JAWS, there were very sincere and serious people that I found on their path. For example, the Muslims were very sincere on their path, and the Christians were very sincere on their path. And to bring them together to walk through some material thing like oil was quite interesting, because what I learned is each tradition have, if they're sincere, they always understand. They always understood that God is in charge. God is in charge. They understood that, even though they were fighting on a very external, local level. So this point about, fear, if someone is fixed in their tradition, they have an internal understanding that God will be there. They have that understanding. God will protect me. God will save me. They may not be connected with it as deeply because externally we're also conditioned. However, that internal understanding is there when we spend time with people that are trying to practice their tradition. So in this case, these residents of Raj, they're transcendental. So they had no fear. They're fully connected to Krishna. They know we have so many beautiful pastimes of Krishna just coming and protecting them. There's the other pastime that Prabhupada talks about here with Mayadanava's son. I think it's Vamona, by Vamona, what's his name? This personality. I think I wrote his name down just so I wouldn't remember, so I could remember his name. Vomasura. He represents actually cheating. But Vomasura, that's another pastime that Prabhupada mentions it's actually mentioned also in the translation. And how he tried to take the cowherd boys, and this is always going on. Some demon is always thinking, they always think that, okay, I know it, I can do it, I can take, I can, I'm the controller, I can, disrupt Krishna's activities. But that really realistically, that will never happen, because Krishna will protect his devotees. Krishna says that, right? Krishna takes care of his devotees always. So here again, Prabhupada says, no fear of material existence, no fear. Why don't they have fear? No fear, because they're fully surrendered. They're fully surrendered, Prabhupada says, in transcendental love. And because of that, they are free from material miseries. They are free from the laws of material nature. And there's a verse that kind of referenced this to some degree. It mentions, this is a verse that somehow I had to know this verse for some reason. I'm not I'm learning not to say what I'm not, but what I am. So this is a verse. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Jyatva Mam Shantim Richati, where Krishna tells Arjuna, a person is in full consciousness of me, full consciousness of Krishna, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord, and planets and demigods, and benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, obtain peace from the pangs of material miseries. So certainly the residents of Vrindavan, they're so elevated. They understand this naturally, right? They're so spontaneous in their relationship with Krishna. They don't have to think about being fearful, because they just know Krishna will be there. So these verses helps us to understand a little bit about when one is fully surrendered to Krishna. Another verse is Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna in the 10th chapter and the 9th verse that that verse in them, let me see if I can do it. Yeah, that's a Machita Madgata Prana. Bodhayanta Parasparam. And so then that verse is saying the thoughts of my pure devotee, they dwell in me. Their lives are fully dedicated to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. Yeah, thoughts of my devotee dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to me. Service, parasparam, among themselves. They're talking katayanta about me. Nityam, they're talking perpetually about him. And that pleases Krishna, Tushyanti. So, and then they enjoy transcendental bliss, right? They because their minds, machita, their minds are fully engaged in him, in Krishna. So this is the point of these pure devotees of the Lord. They're fully engaged in Krishna. Also, Krishna's representatives fully engaged in Krishna. Varuna, he's fully engaged in the Lord. So that's why he was a little bit disturbed with his associates who, had different assumptions about Nanda Maharaj. And so Prabhupada mentioned, there's a point Prabhupada mentions in that purport. He says, a person can attain peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. Only in complete Krishna consciousness. And so what does that mean to be only in complete Krishna consciousness? It simply means to surrender, to be able to take shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord. That can help us. That's one way, because we ourselves cannot directly approach Krishna. Of course, we can approach Krishna through the holy names of the Lord. However, if we take shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord, if we surrender to the knowledge of the Lord, that's one way that we can attain peace, simply by taking shelter of the knowledge. If we approach a person where that they are surrendered, if we somehow take shelter of somebody that's surrendered, then we can also experience, peace. Krishna says that and another point that Krishna makes is that you surrender to me, that verse that we all know and love, Sarvadharma Parityagya Mame Kam Saranam Vraja, that just by, if we just believe that verse, if we just believe what Krishna says asking us, it says that he's going to, protect us from all kind of danger, anything. So that's the resonance of Vrindavan, the whole Krishna book. I mean, not the whole Krishna book, but so much of the Krishna book is about these pastimes with Krishna and the demons and how he's protecting his devotees. And then if we can enter into those pastimes, we can understand how they're not affected by material existence at all, in no way, externally or internally. For us, we may be externally affected. We are externally, at least I am externally affected by material existence, but internally, by the mercy of our guru, by the mercy of our spiritual masters, we are getting this knowledge, and we're somehow getting some purification to try to surrender, to try to have this mood of the residents of Raj. We can't imitate their spontaneity. We can't imitate, their devotion, their dedication. We can't, what is that in the Bhagavad Gita? I always remember this from doing Bhakti Sastri, that we don't want to be show bottle devotees. We don't want to pretend that we are on that spontaneous platform. Nowadays, there's a lot of discussion in our different ISKCON groups about Raganuga Bhakti. And yes, that's a discussion that's important. Because we do want to come to that place where we can spontaneously love Krishna. However, we don't want to do it in a show bottle way. We don't want to pretend. This is why Prabhupada gave us sadhana bhakti, so that we can practice. And even those persons that are on that very spontaneous Raganuga platform, it's not that they minimize sadhana bhakti. At least that's my understanding. Sadhana bhakti is always a place. There's always a place for calling on the Lord's holy name, even anyone on any platform. Now, Prabhupada did mention in this purport that the residents of Raj, that they didn't so much meditate or do these spiritual things because everything that they were doing was focused on Krishna, everything. And Prabhupada says they worked so hard during the day and the night, right? They during the day that by night they just needed to sleep. So many of the devotees, now you're doing Christmas marathon and you're distributing books. And I remember distributing books in Africa also. And, you know, you can go out from morning until night. I remember doing that. And when you come back, all you want to do is just, you know, get something if possible and just go to sleep. Because your whole day is just immersed in hearing about Krishna, answering questions about Krishna, talking about Krishna. It's just kind of the most beautiful experience to have that. So those devotees that are distributing books now during the Christmas marathon, Vidya Prabhu, I see you. I want to thank all of you, you know, for continuing with that, with doing that service, because really that service I learned is one of the greatest ways for us to get purified and remember Krishna is by distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. So thank you very much for this Christmas marathon. I don't know how long it goes on in Africa. For us, it used to go on until after the 1st of January. After even beginning of January, we would still be distributing books. But now I'm not sure, you know, anyway, everyone has different timing. They deal with Krishna's time differently. In any case, I wanted to share how appreciative I am of that, because that's one of the ways to not focus on material existence. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that explains, another verse from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita Jayanti is tomorrow for us, and so I took on that service to engage devotees in chanting the different verses from Bhagavad Gita, and so that's making me very thoughtful about all that Krishna has said to Arjuna, and I've been looking through the Bhagavad Gita this past week. So this verse 265. For one who is situated in divine consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such a happy state, when its intelligence becomes steady. So this is the process that Krishna is explaining to Arjuna. You know that if you become engaged, that's Krishna to Arjuna. If you're situated in divine consciousness, you want to, 265, such a beautiful verse. Prasade prasade sarva dukkhanam. For one who thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is well established. Saha, could you bring up the purport? Let me just look at Prabhupada's purport. Please.
There seems to be no purport.
Okay, there's no purport
the
there?
one.
Oh, okay. All right, then if we can go to 9.1.
Okay.
These are just verses to support, you know, the scholars that speak on SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, they always have some verses that they use to validate what they're saying. However, there's, you know, Krishna, he validates everything himself. He's just hearing about him validates everything. But anyway, he says this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me. So that's another, those associates of Varuna. I didn't see Prabhupada say they were envious. However, they did jump to conclusion. They did have assumptions about Nanda Maharaj. But he says if somebody is, and so when we get caught in that mood of assumptions, when we find ourselves just kind of not first inquiring from a person, or first I'm sorry, I diverted a bit, but anyway, yeah, when we find ourselves just not allowing ourselves to first understand what might be going on for the other person, when we find ourselves in situations where we're assuming that people are doing things, or, and we're not clear, we're not sure, that can cause devastation in the devotee association, in the devotee community, which is why Krishna tells Arjuna, he says, because he doesn't have any of that. So we can say assumptions is kind of like a cousin to envy, it's in that family. And so he says, because he doesn't have that, he's gonna give him confidential knowledge and realization. Confidential knowledge and realization. So there's one thing to receive the knowledge, there's another thing to realize the knowledge, right? Which means living it in our daily existence. As Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, my revered spiritual master, says, we got to learn to walk our talk. When we walk our talk, it means being open vessels and not assuming what another person's intention might be until we have an opportunity to dialogue and ask questions and be curious, because there's always a different perspective. And so Krishna tells Arjuna, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material life. So if we want to be relieved of the miseries of material life, this is a perfect way that Krishna tells us to be like that. Be non-envious. And when we talk about envy, realize that envy has a family of associates. So am I in that family of associates of envy? And internally question ourselves, internally try to understand what's happening, with me as I try to grow in Krishna consciousness. Another way that we can overcome these different kinds of miseries of material existence is this is from SRIMAD Bhagavatam. And this is Kapila Muni advising his mother. And I'm just going to share the purport where Prabhupada says that that Kapila Dev is telling his mother, if you want to be free from material attachment, she should increase her attachment for sadhus or devotees who are completely freed from all material attachments. So we spoke about that a little bit, that we want to associate with people that are not caught in that family of envy. Their minds, their intelligence are clear. They understand even if I have some doubt, just like I was reading recently that had doubts about Krishna. I'm sure the scholars here remember, but anyway, I just read that recently. And so he's questioning some of these things, that the doubts that he had. And of course, as he questioned, as he's curious, he got to understand, he got full knowledge, full realization, full understanding about the personality of Godhead. So it's not like doubts won't be there. And it's not like we won't get caught in that family of envy. At the same time, though, it's very important for us to take shelter of people that are not caught in that. We want to do that. We don't want to stay connected with that family of persons that are always assuming and just kind of making decisions based on unfounded assumptions. We need to always be clear. So yeah, those are some of the points I think that was in this verse. The other point was that the residents of Raj, they were fully surrendered to Krishna. So we know, Mother Yashoda, she could bind Krishna. She's fully not knowing who Krishna is, spontaneously loving Krishna. And so how can we develop that mood of spontaneously, how can we spontaneously love Krishna? So I am going to say a way for us to spontaneously love Krishna right now, at least for me, is to be sure to always absorb my mind, my intelligence in our sadhana program that's been given to us by Srila Prabhupada. As I said, sometimes we take it for granted. We take it for granted. The holy names of the Lord is Krishna. And it sounds so simple sometimes for the devotees. Oh, chant Hare Krishna. Yeah, I remember one time when Swami came here many, many years ago, and in Gitanagari, and a devotee asked a question, and he said, "Oh, just chant Hare Krishna." And at the time, you know, I was a little like, well, okay, yeah, you can chant Hare Krishna, but there's so many things going on with devotees. And some persons might not even have a taste for chanting Hare Krishna, right? They might not have a taste for chanting the holy names. However, as the years went on, that was many years ago, as the years went on, I've studied many things, many different secular ways of dealing with the mind and the intelligence. I've come to understand that, yes, learning about all these things are definitely important. It's definitely important to understand how the mind works. It's definitely important to have awareness about our mental health condition. It's definitely important, for us to explore certain things that can help us to be more peaceful. At the end of the day, though, the only way we can become peaceful is to be able to be in Krishna consciousness, which means always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. How do we do that? For us, is to take shelter of sadhana, take shelter of the holy names of the Lord. And I'll close with this little prayer from Narottam Das Thakur. He says, "Oh, my dear Lord Gauranga." So Lord Chaitanya has come for us in this age with the holy name. Sounds simple, and it is simple, but believe me, it's very hard for people to consistently be regulated with the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Oh, my dear Lord Gauranga, please show your mercy to this lowly and destitute soul. Oh, Lord, there is no one more fallen than myself in all the three worlds. These are very high, caliber devotees. It's not somebody that's coming from a place of lack of self-esteem. These are devotees that are crying out to Krishna, holding grass between my teeth. Oh, Lord Gauranga, I'm calling out to you now. Please be compassionate upon me and come to reside within the temple of my heart, right? This is what we're looking for. If you do not give your mercy, seeing how fallen I am, then why are you known as Patita Pavana, the merciful savior of the fallen? I am plunged amidst the violent hurricane-stricken waves in the ocean of this material world, from which there is no escape. Kindly give me the gift of your divine lotus feet, which are compared to a boat in which your servant may cross over the ocean of birth and death. In Kali Yuga, the lotus feet of the Lord for us is represented by taking shelter of the holy names of the Lord. Narottam Das, the servant of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, ceaselessly makes this prayer. So if we stay in prayer, that's one of the 9 processes, Vandana, to simply beg to be able to sincerely chant. And as we chant, Krishna will give us understanding about how to look at the secular world, look at what's going on in the world, and understand it in ways that we can help people. And it doesn't mean we just we don't have to just be fanatical, telling people you just chant Hare Krishna. No, we can also understand how to dialogue with people with their language and how they understand the world, and still have this mood of being surrendered to the holy names of the Lord. That's how Krishna will give that to us automatically if we take shelter in a proper way, proper consciousness. Like the residents of Vrindavan, totally nothing else but Krishna. It's just Krishna. What else is there? Okay, my dear friends, thank you so very much. We are grateful. Almost Christmas time for everyone, and not for us, but it's funny. I was talking to our Chuck's daughters the other day, and they were telling me, we never celebrated Christmas when we were younger because, they grew up as devotees. So it's quite interesting, yeah? So I'm sure Sahadev kids that, okay, Christmas is around, but in the home, it's kind of like, okay, we don't know so much about it. It's interesting. The next generation. Haribol. Thank you very much, Prabhus.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the Krishna Katha. Very beautiful. Of course, as always. Dear devotees, if anyone may have question, comment, realizations, please. You may use the hand emoji or your physical hand, and you'll be asked to unmute to speak. See, Mother, some of us, if not all of us, who joined devotional service from West Africa, it was very easy for us to accept Krishna consciousness because there are so many similarities of our traditional understanding and ways of doing things and Krishna consciousness. So Nanda Maharaj goes to Yamuna River at the time he's not supposed to go in there, and he gets accosted by the servants of Varuna. We have same understanding in West Africa also, where in most rivers, you are not supposed to enter into the river on certain days or certain times. If you do, you get punished either with disease or sometimes even death. So that is very interesting. But my question here is, Srila Prabhupada states in the purport that these Brajabasis, they had no fear because they always had Krishna. So did Nanda Maharaj go into the river at the odd time he was not supposed to go in there because he was fearless, or it was by accident that he went in at the time he was not supposed to go in? That's my question.
Thank you, Saha. Yeah, so I love when you ask questions because it means that we got to, be on the ball, right? We got to know what we're talking about. We have to have some understanding. I remember one time when I came back from West Africa, from doing conflict resolution, Guru Maharaj asked me, and my spiritual master asked me to share with him some of the things that, we were teaching there. And he said, I just want like a 6 points of what you were doing. And I was like, okay, let me go get my manual. And he said, no, I don't want it from your manual. I just want you to tell me. Okay. And I was like, well, wait, I was gone for 6 months and I've been really having to study this thing. And it was beyond my understanding that I just need to know that, right? Just like that. But that was a lesson. That was a lesson. So in answer to your question, I tried to, as best as I could, try to, in my little teeny weeny brain, understand some of these points about Nanda Maharaj. So I understood that it was at a moment, it wasn't that Nanda Maharaj was just trying to defy, the rules and regulations of Ekadashi. It was that the timing that Nanda Maharaj went in was just like a minute of, and he was really his intention, and that's the point about this pastime. Nanda Maharaj's intention was to make sure that he didn't miss the time. He didn't want to miss the timing of when he was supposed to go inside of, to take the bath. He didn't want to miss the timing of breaking the fast. And even in our lives, we can see sometimes, I know for me, I see that sometimes, the fat, especially when there's some Kadashis where you got to break it at a certain time. And then, I have to be very conscious the night before. Taka Prabhu in Gita Nagari, he sends out a message. Okay, this is the time you got to break the fast.
Yes.
And now, if I'm doing something at that time in the class, I give another class or whatever, I have to be very thoughtful. Oh my God, I have to break the fast. Sometimes I've caught myself. I'm on the computer, and it's time to break the fast, and I have to ask Ekavir, bring me something, a little something, because I got to break this fast. Whatever, something. Yeah. So Nanda Maharaj was in that kind of anxiety that he wanted to be sure that Dwadashi, that he would break the fast at the time when he was supposed to. Now, by that second minute, whatever the time is, somehow those residents, which actually, if we think about it, those associates of Varuna, in one sense, we could look at it two ways. They're on it, right? Because they could know that somebody was off of what they were supposed to do. They knew that, okay, in other words, they're like very attentive to their role of making sure that that people have their timing when they come into the water. Because I think I read somewhere also, and maybe some of the scholars that you like yourself and others might be able to fill in this little gap, that there was also some other personalities that had to come into that Yamuna River, as you said, at the time when Nanda Maharaj was in there. So really, somehow there's some timing of how you take bath, how people take bath in the Yamuna, that those associates of Varuna, they were aware of that. And so they knew that the timing when Nanda was in there was the timing for some other people to be in there. And so that was a part of what made them so, they just kind of just not so thoughtful or not so aware. They were so focused, right? And sometimes we see ourselves like that. We're so focused on the thing that we think we have to do, right? That we forget. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, our spiritual master, he says, sometimes we think of we forget the one by thinking of the many. We forget the one by thinking of the many. And so those associates, they were absorbed in their service. And I'm guessing their service is to make sure, whoever is supposed to take their baths at whatever time that they're arranging that properly. And they missed the one. They missed Nanda Maharaj. And because of that, we have this beautiful pastime to help us to learn about these different ways of how to be, in life, which is so important. I hope that answered. There are some scholars on this class, that can possibly give their input on that, on what you asked.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you. Thank you so much for the answer. What I'm getting from the answer you just gave, which I think is a very important and powerful lesson for us all as aspiring devotees. Because sometimes as devotees, even though we are nowhere close to Nanda Maharaj, but sometimes we become kind of puffed up that, I'm a devotee, so I won't do this, I won't do that. But the explanation you gave indicates that Nanda Maharaj was not trying to defy the rules and the regulations, even though he was fearless of anything or whatever, but he still was abiding by rules and the regulations. And therefore, as devotees or aspiring devotees, we should also be mindful of rules and the regulations and not just say that, okay, because we are devotees, nobody can tell us not to do this, not to do that. So that I think is a very beautiful lesson for us all to learn. To learn from.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Thank you. I see Thakur Murari, Prabhu.
Yes, Thakur Murari, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, obeisance to you all, obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. So I was tempting to leave, but I said, let me take on this, this Sangha. So I'm glad I took it on. So, in terms of fear, there is the aspect of fear in the primary and secondary rasa. They're saying, for example, Mother Krishna goes out and Mother Yashoda is, kind of worrying that, if everything will be all right. But so we are fearful in material because, it's a different kind of fear for us as opposed to the fear of the Brajavasis. All right? Okay, that's one. And two, I think in translation or the purport, it was said that Nanda Maharaj thought it was maybe, in other words, maybe sometimes you try to do something in a time, but then you get sort of mixed up with the time. So in other words, it was a little bit too early. So yes, in addition, we should remember also that in Krishna's Leela, a lot of different things come into play. Yes. So that is a part of we should remember too. That Nanda Maharaj. So as I said, if he wasn't arrested, then we would have had this beautiful pastime. That is.
Mm.
Yes.
Thank
So
you,
that's
Prabhu.
part
Thank
of
you
it.
for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Thakur Prabhu. Yeah. Anyone else with something else to share or to say?
Sorry, let me go again.
Yeah,
So
please.
in
Go
our
ahead.
country, can I? Or
Yeah.
there was somebody before me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so in our country, we would say predominant Christian. So when it comes around to Christmas time, there are festivities and observances. So myself, we don't, like for me, as practicing devotee, I don't necessarily go out but in terms of the homes and in terms of with family and friends, there's some sort of, you do the observances. Because you don't want to be like you're anti the thing, because that's how that springboard that I left from Christianity into Krishna consciousness, because of someone's teaching that we were exposed to. Yes, so like I'm saying, that we try to be a part of the observances. You don't want to be, you want to be friendly. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Murari. Definitely, we're not sectarian. And definitely, if we really understand the essence, the real meaning of this time, we would be very devotional. Thank you, Prabhu.
Well, we have already, my wife Luca already put up our Christmas tree. So
Haribol.
yeah, we already did.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
So, yeah. So your children are learning because of you and your wife about Christmas.
Yeah. They should learn, yes.
Okay.
We go to His Grace Salika Prabhu. Please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, Masadi Prabhu, thank you very much for your hosting. Mother VRAJALILA, thank you so much. So it's beautiful listening to you. There is this different sense of hearing from you. I think it has also to do with the African background. That motherly affection and love that comes out from your speaking is always unique. Thank you so much for speaking the way you speak. And we pray that Guru and Krishna will continue to strengthen you, give you good health and more intelligence to guide us. I would like to make some little comments and then a question after. First is that about the Christmas thing, I think one beautiful thing about like Guru Dev is that he never made us to feel that Christmas isn't for us. I remember in those early days when I was just new, when I joined newly, and the first Christmas celebration, Guru Dev was in the country. So, and I came to realize that it was a normal tradition for the devotees when Guru Dev is around. He would take the devotees to the beach. We'll celebrate like anything, and we have a special engagement. And first was that the first Christmas, I didn't have opportunity because that time when he came, I had to be on the altar. So I didn't go with the devotees. So I didn't have the experience of how he exhibit his fatherly love to the devotees at the beach. So devotees were sharing. But the second time, the following Christmas, I was able to go with him, and I was wondering, the perception of what you think of a guru in the Vedic culture is different from what you see. Guru Dev is always fatherly. He was just down to earth, and you never feel it. So we miss those personal touch of his. He's such a wonderful personality. So, and that makes us also that anytime it is Christmas, even while we practice in Krishna, because I always try to arrange when the kids were still around, I always make sure that we try to create something special within that period, and then use opportunity also to speak about the essence of what Christianity is. And I remember in 1992, I think that was 1992, one reporter came and they asked Gurudev, he came then, he was in the country, and they was asking about Christmas. And he said, we are Christians too. And then I kept that Daily Times publication for several years. I know I should still have it somewhere, my drawer somewhere. So Gurudev is such an amazing person. Never makes us feel that Christmas isn't for us.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I wanted to speak about is that you mentioned about Jos. Maybe I would put that afterwards. I never knew you were in Jos, but I knew that when you came that time, you were like an undercover devotee doing some service. I knew you were in Abuja, but I never knew you came to Jos. It's an amazing. I'm happy to hear about that, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience in Jos, because maybe some of the droplets of seed that you put here is what is manifesting in my work here now, because whenever I come into any fora, any platform, whether it is NGO, government, parastatals, when they start to speak, the kind of reception is amazing. So I'm starting to see that maybe it's as a result of some of the seed that you've planted in those days that I'm benefiting from. So thank you very much for what you do. Now,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So talking about the text of today, Krishna's pastimes, of course, has a lot of specific reasons, as the chapter we're discussing today is. And I like the way you put it when you talked about what it means in our present life, how it affects in our present life. So my question is that, talking about fear and the rules and regulations, as we take to part of Bhakti, there are so much, like Sadi Prabhu said, there are so many cultural rules and regulations as regards to nature, as regards to social norms that we don't follow. And sometimes the fear comes. Sometimes you even get the family threatening that because you left this particular tradition or culture or regulation, you're going to suffer like anything. And sometimes, even though we believe that Krishna is always protecting, sometimes this fear comes to the mind. So my question now is that, to what degree should a devotee participate in cultural norms that relates to some of these kind of observance of nature regulations?
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That's such a deep question, and thank you for your other reflections. I'd love to comment on Jaws, and I'd probably do that in some other time, but I just want to say one thing about Jaws that was, I was there for quite some time, actually, and I was there with Christians, like I said, Christians, Baha'is, Muslims, and I would visit some of these families while I was there. So I really spent quality time there, and quality time just learning the culture, because there's different aspects of the culture, the same culture, but different aspects. Christians may have a different way, Muslims have a different way. So that was quite interesting for me. So thank you. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says that fear is due to worrying about the future. Prabhupada speaks that in the purport. And when we think about culture, then internally we might need to ask ourselves, how much am I really still connected with my culture internally, Because as Krishna's devotees, our culture is to be connected to Krishna's family and ultimately to Krishna's home, Goloka Vrindavan. That's our real culture. But when we talk about, there's aspects of culture in our conditioned state that we might want to try to look at and see. Prabhupada says a person in Krishna consciousness, so even an aspiring person, an aspiring devotee, has no fear. Why does that person have no fear? He says, because by his activities, by the person's activities, by what you're doing, all the services that you're doing, he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. And that goes beyond all the cultures, all our conditioned cultures. If we have that internal understanding, then we can interact in any situation with anyone, right? We can interact with whatever external manifestations our culture may be, knowing that, if I have fear, it's because I'm attached to something about that culture and my future. What does it mean? Am I going to be let go by my people? Am I, it's that we might think is fear, but really when we really go deeper with that in terms of being Krishna conscious, then we realize there's no need for that fear, because ultimately this culture is not really, the culture in the mature world is not really our culture. Not really. I mean, doesn't mean we don't participate in it. Like I said in JOS, that was one of the things I love so much, is just learning the different nuances of the culture. It was beautiful. That was the first time that, and you guys are gonna maybe love this, some of you, not the ones that are really sincere in being a devotee, but that was the first time that I visited a family where the husband had 7 wives, and I saw how they were living. It was just like amazing. I mean, he had like a place for each wife, and it was like real, it's things you read in the books, and it became alive. And I was like, wow, okay, so let me talk to these ladies and find out how this works. And so, it's kind of, yeah, those things are there in culture. Or like when I visited Benin, for example, Benin has such deep culture, deep culture. And they're very much, attached to like the ancestors, previous personalities that were examples, right? And so I learned so much there. And one of the places that I felt deeply attached to when I was in Nigeria was Calabar. I knew I had been there before. I knew that. I knew some lifetime because I knew that culture, you know? So it's nice to learn different nuances, like I said, about cultures. But like Sahade was talking about, in Ghana, there's the culture of, in the rivers, you're respectful. And I remember when I was in Ghana, the Ewe people, I spent time trying to learn the Ewe people because they were amazing. They were like amazing. They had so much Krishna consciousness. It was amazing. I mean, I saw like they had deities, and those deities looked like Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. If I didn't know, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah. So yes, there are cultures that reflect Krishna consciousness, and there are cultures that are more secular and more conditioned. So we need to understand, what are we connected to internally? We need to go inside. Yeah, I'm big on self-reflection, self-introspection. Yeah. So I don't know. I hope that's helpful, Prue.
Well,
thank you so much, Mother. Thank you very much for the way you answered the question. I think it kind of satisfied what I was trying to hear. But let me take it a little bit further before, since there are no hands up yet. That is something you mentioned also, and it relates to the point we're discussing about doubts. And when you were speaking on that, I was reflecting on the Krishna statement in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, where he says that but those who are ignorant and faithless persons, who doubt the revealed scriptures, do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. And then looking at Nanda Maharaj's fearlessness for taking the risk to enter into the river, back to the first connected, let's say it's connected to the first question. So as devotees, for an example, I'll give a Gurudev taught us how the family should be cared for. It shows how practically how we should relate with our families, because it says simplify that. And I witnessed several times how he guided devotees to not, because of becoming devotees, disconnect with their family, but asks them. I remember in one particular time, he was giving a lecture and he was saying that it is not that, it was explaining about, I think that time is also a Christmas period. Then he was explaining that why one of the reasons it creates this festive mood around this time is to give the devotees a higher taste, so that they don't miss what they're leaving behind. And he said, it is the family of devotees. Sometimes we want devotees to come around this kind of festive time because they want to have a family gathering. It's not wrong. But he advised that devotees shouldn't go to the family during this festive period because the culture of their celebration is a little bit degraded. So therefore, it creates a festive mood around that time for devotee to be engaged in a higher state of consciousness. So that is a question on this platform sometimes where a devotee was asking a question about, okay, in my culture, it is traditional annually to have a kind of a family gathering. And then in that gathering, there will be a slaughter of goats, there's slaughter of some animals. And he was asking the question, should I go, shouldn't I go? And the question is that there are several verses in the scriptures which tells us that we should not get involved in such activities. But then when devotees is not doing materially well, mind is tendency of the mind is sometimes he thinks, oh, I'm suffering because I've left my family culture. And Krishna is talking about here about doubt. So where do we put this doubt that we're talking about as different from being faithless or unfaithful in Krishna consciousness?
So if I'm understanding the question, Prabhu, doubts related to devotees that are fixed in Krishna consciousness and doubts related to people that are endeavoring to be Krishna conscious. Okay, and that, yeah. So those doubts from the pure devotees are for our benefit, examples for our benefit. I think it was, I want to be sure about who that personality was that was, I'm thinking it was Parikshit Maharaj, but I want to be sure that was expressing doubts. And then somehow those doubts got clarified. No. It's, okay, yeah, it's the fifth canto. And it's the fifth canto, and hearing that chapter in the fifth canto about the cosmology of the world, right? So there was a personality that in that fifth canto that was a little bit doubtful, not a lot doubtful, trying to understand this cosmology. So that's to help us, yeah, to understand more, to really dive deeper. Like if we have doubts, however, if we have someone, this is why the association of pure devotees is so important. If you have association of pure devotees, what it will do is those doubts will make us curious to want to learn and to grow. There is also those kinds of doubts that we will be influenced by Maya. And of course, for some people, they can be taken away from Krishna consciousness. So in reference to how does that apply in our lives for a devotee that's endeavoring, right? So I remember in my own life, when I was new as a devotee, I was very close to my family, and my family were Christians. And I was really close. I really would miss them. I love being a devotee, and I really love that I was in Africa. But whenever I would come back from Africa, I would go see my family. And I remember one time, this one is back to Tirtha Swami, I revered Guru Maharaj. I asked him, I think, to go visit my family because it may have been around Christmas time. I can't even remember. And he said, okay, I'm going to send someone with you though, you know? So he had this devotee, this Prabhu actually, drives me to my parents' house, and he was just there. And I just still see him sitting in a chair, just like sitting there while I'm interacting with my family and being with my family, you know? And I remember that night he went and stayed, I think, at the temple. And then the next day he came back, and then, you know, we left. It was like he had me supervised. And I'm like, at that point in time, you know, I'm like not a little girl or anything like that, but, you know, I'm grown, and, you know, he had me supervised. And I always remember that. I don't, now I look at it and I laugh and I think, Guru Maharaj, I can't believe you did that. You know, send like a supervisor person, you know, with me. So why did he do that? Why did he do that? Because he knew I was really attached, and he maybe thought that I would stay there much longer than perhaps he would have wanted me to. So yes, we do need to be thoughtful. At the same time, as we mature in Krishna consciousness, then you know, prayerfully our attachment to Krishna increases. And then, as Guru Maharaj says, we can make two choices. We either give our association or we take association. So if we're giving our association, then we can go in any environment and give our association, regardless of what someone might be doing. This is when we become more mature. However, if we're not so mature in our Krishna consciousness, and again, that's why it's important to be introspective and reflective. If we're not so mature, then we're going to take that association. So for example, my daughter, our daughter, she is a Christian minister. And we're going to visit her for Christmas. And I know, like, she's really Christian, right? However, when we go to see her, we are both her and us, me and Ekaverpugo, are very thoughtful and conscious to always keep our conversations in the essence of God, the essence, and not get into all the different details, because we know that could, take us in different directions. Another thing about that I am always nervous about being in those environments is, like you said, what we're eating, right? What are we going to eat? And so my daughter, is very aware that when we come, of course, we're vegetarians. And in some ways she's vegetarian, but I think her husband is not a vegetarian. So she's very conscious to have different pots that we use, different everything, so that we can be comfortable with what we do. Now that comes with like some maturity to help our family members, right? To let them know, like, okay, I'll visit you. However, these are the conditions. And to prayerfully that we have family members that can be like that. If we don't have that, then yes, we do need to be cautious, because material energy is so strong, and that affection of family is such a strong bond, especially if we've had families that's not toxic, families where we experience love and care. Then it is very difficult to not be in those environments, because to be honest with you, sometimes the devotees, they go to their families because they feel more love and care in those environments than they do in the devotee environment. And I'm not making this a criticism, I'm just saying sometimes that happens. So we got to be really careful, conscious how we're dealing with devotees. That's why Guru Bhakti Tirtha Swami I say Bhakti Tirtha Swami only because the devotees here, I want to be respectful, that are not Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj disciples. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would have these festival for everyone so that they can feel connected. The biggest, the one of the things I learned the most from our spiritual man, and so many things I learned, but one thing that stuck with me, that I'm trying to live my life, I'm trying to keep that legacy of his, is connection, how to connect with people, and how to be inclusive in that connection. Inclusivity and connection. He lived that. He was that. And he made that available. So that's a part of the legacy that I would like to also somehow reflect in my life. So how do we do that? It requires maturity, and it requires a lot of prayer. I hope that's helpful, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Let me clarify. Maybe you were talking about the conversation between Jet Bharat and King Rao Ghana in 5th canto, chapter 12, where he was expressing, I think I opened that verse now when we were talking. So maybe I should share that verse.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful verse. It's one of those verses that I also relate to when I talk about verse devotees' doubt. Here, so it's King of Ghana that was asking the question here. So he said, whatever doubt I have about the particular subject matter, I shall ask you about later. For the time being, these mysterious yoga instructions you have given me for self-realization appear very difficult to understand. Please repeat them in a simple way so that I can understand them. My mind is very inquisitive and I want to understand this clearly. But what I take more in this conversation is Prabhupada's purport here. I always like this part of Prabhupada stated here. Prabhupada said that although Jet Bharat explained everything to Maharaj Raghunatha, it appears that his intelligence was not perfect enough to understand clearly. He therefore requested a further explanation. So I love that way Prabhupada put that explanation here, that the devotee should ask for the clarification, even when one should not be ashamed that he's he has a doubt. Doubt is a part of growth. So I always love this particular sentence, Papa.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that highlight through. So beautiful and so wonderful. Yeah. So even these great devotees express some doubts, and they do it for our benefit. Right.
Exactly.
So that gives Prabhupada the chance to bring in the spiritual master. Tadvidi Paripate now, Paripashena Sevaye. We got to be humble and submissive and be attentive to learn, ready to grow. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you. Devotees, anyone with something to share? Mother, one thing I'm seeing from the purport, which is very interesting, because I heard Shri Gurudev say it a couple of times. These devotees, these Brajavasis, they get so busy during the day that when they hit the bed at night, they don't need any sleep aid. They sleep very soundly.
Yeah.
And the devotees generally are like that. Devotees work so hard. Unfortunately, sometimes, instead of staying up during the day, they fall asleep because the hours they had for sleep wasn't sufficient enough. But
Yes.
it's very interesting. So it did not just start today. It's been like that ever since.
Well, it is different, Saha, in that our not sleeping is because we're endeavoring for some material gain by working hard. In you know, at least I could say that in terms of my unfolding, that
Yeah.
when I was engaged in just working in terms of not having Krishna in the center, then it would be for my, you know, for my benefit. However, if Krishna is in the center, I think that's what Prabhupada, the point Prabhupada is making for us, as you know, is that these residents, they were so exhausted that they couldn't think about anything else. They couldn't, yeah, they weren't thinking about anything else, but in their working, they were always thinking of Krishna. Everything that we were doing was about Krishna. So it was like, you know, like not ever something for me. I, me, mine. It's always for Krishna. Everything, right? Nana Maharaj had how many cows? 9,000 cows or something? 900,000 cows. They were all taking, you know, they were working, doing, making this, making that. Everything was for Krishna. So it's definitely a different consciousness than my consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. But by the mercy of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, some devotees were fortunate enough to find themselves in such mood, especially like the early days in New Vrindavan. The devotees were working tirelessly during the day, so much up to the point that nobody had the time to think of anything else other than Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And there is a very nice description of the Hare Krishna devotees in the then magazine, Who Are They? You know, Hare Krishna, we had that magazine, Who Are They? Which gives like a brief description of Hare Krishna movement. And it describes so beautifully the daily activities of the devotees from the time they wake up till they go to sleep.
Yeah.
And even when they're sweeping, when they're washing, they're always talking about Krishna. So we are fortunate Srila Prabhupada gave us the same system. But how to practice it? Now, like we say, talk is cheap.
Yeah. So, you know, I see Har Chakra's hand is up, but I wanted to say that somebody could write something about the devotees in Africa in the early days. They were like that, you know, devotees that like Ishvara, devotees like Srivas Prabhu. There's so many devotees in those early days that were like, they were like foot soldiers. That's what I call them. From morning until night, those guys, even, you know, our there Mahamantra that has left our association, I saw him. I saw him just like from morning till night, just doing service that somehow or other, like you said, like you're saying, it's so nice to reflect on that those persons have been even in our own yatra where they've done that. They've meditated. They were always, because they're distributing books, even right now, those devotees that are doing the Christmas marathon, they're constantly meditating on Krishna. And when they come home, they're tired.
Yeah.
And I hope they're chanting Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for adding to that. I'll be with you in a minute, but I remember one time I was a bhakta by then, and Srimad Varajalila Prabhu came to my temple with one foreign devotee. He was a bhakta. I think his name was Bhakta Peter. And they were distributing books and paintings. And Srimad Varajalila Prabhu, I remember he had to wash his pants and dry the pants, iron it, and then use it to go out the following day. But of course, we didn't have a washer dryer, so he had to wash it by hand. And I saw the following day, his pant was not fully dry, but he still wore it to go out. I said, wow. And I was thinking to myself, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
But these devotees were so dedicated. So Adichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Mother VRAJALILA. Thank you.
Garanga.
And
thank you, Hare
always
Chakra.
giving us the practical way of Krishna consciousness. The little comment I want to give is about the question Salika asked. The interaction we interact with our family. And the answer you gave was also very unique. How you said that our state of consciousness is what is important. That Guru Maharaj was saying that when we go into any association, we should go there to give them our association, not to take their association. So I remember one time there was this wedding, and I was invited to the wedding. And so when I was going, I was in Doti, in Kila, and the wedding was taking place in a Catholic church. So when I went to the church room, you know how Catholic they have their altar with the Muti of Jesus Christ on top of the altar. I went there. When I went to the church room, I walked straight in front of the altar, and with my white dhoti, I lay down flat and offered the Dandavat Pranam. And everybody was like, they were like shocked. Why would this guy lay down flat on the floor? And so during the sermon, the priest took it up, and the priest was telling them, you see, you are always here, you claim to be Catholic, and you can't even honor the deity of Jesus. Look at somebody, we are not even considering him to be a Christian. Look at him. He enters here and he's in white, and he lays down flat to offer his respect. And he was telling the congregation, I guess you guys are taking some key from this situation and know how honorable it is to offer your respect to the deity. So, like I said, if we make our mindset such that when we go to any situation, we try to act in such a way that people will want to know more about what we are up to, then it doesn't really matter. Whenever there is a family gathering, it doesn't really matter for us to go. We can go there and then somehow or the other take the opportunity to chip in some amount of Krishna consciousness somehow or the other. And in this way, I think we will be doing our widow's mite of a preaching. Hare Krishna.
God, thank you, Heart Chakra Prabhu. And while you're here, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate you for sharing yourself with the secular community of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, by giving them beautiful, wonderful, sweet-smelling flowers and making yourself available. And I know that you definitely, I'm sure, take people to a different place whenever you distribute a flower. So thank you very, very much for your example. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So I think we may have to bring this to a close. But Mother, I would like to highlight one, I believe, unique event that took place with this Leela. Srila Prabhupada states in the purport that, like you were describing, the time that elapsed for the time Nanda Maharaj went into the river was not like very far off.
Right.
But Varuna still took that as an opportunity to arrest him because he knew that it was an opportunity. It was a chance. Because if he arrests Nanda Maharaj, he knows for sure that his son, Krishna, will come to liberate him, will come to free him, and he will have the opportunity to see the Lord. So I'm seeing how a devotee will try to use every opportunity to get the association and the service of Krishna. Well, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, he himself didn't arrest Nanda Maharaj. His associates did.
Yeah, but they arrested and sent Nanda Maharaj to him. Yes.
Right. They sent him to Nanda Maharaj, and Nanda Maharaj was really happy because he knew, okay, Krishna is gonna come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like if you send, I mean, this is just a mundane example, but if you send my sweet godson to me, and he's probably going to be thinking, when is my mother or my father going to come get me? He knows you're going to come.
Yeah.
So he was like that, Varuna. He knew, he's like, okay, Krishna's coming. And he was excited. Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can be like that every day when we chant the holy names of the Lord.
Yeah.
We can think like that. Oh, Krishna is coming. Haribol. I'm not saying I'm like that, but I'm saying that can be a meditation.
Yeah. All right, so dear devotees, we humbly requesting you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered big sister, Grace, Mother Brajalila Devi. Jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Rama,
Hare
Rama,
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 Hare
Hare
All
Grace Mother Radhila Mataji ki
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear devotees. We miss your voice today, Prabhu. Govinda, we miss your voice.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, my Dandava pranams to you, Mataji.
Haribol.
My obeisances to Prabhu, please.
Yes, we're so grateful. Thakur Murari Prabhu is still here. Sachi Devi is here. We thank you so much. We haven't seen you for a long time. At least I haven't seen you, so I'm happy to see you here. Sunita Devi's here, Narayani's here, Yashoda Devi's here. That's and Varaha Prabhu is here. We miss your voice, and of course our beloved Loka, who probably would never send Sham to me. Sham would be like, where's my mother? So we miss Varaha Prabhu's voice today. Thank you all so very much, and have a wonderful Christmas.